And now we
Yeah,
are
good.
recording. Let me mute this. Good morning, Damien. Good evening in Paris. Good afternoon. Middle of the night in Asia. This is the new world. We are live from an altered space of consciousness anyway. I'm very excited to be with Damien because you are quite an animal out there, you know, mixing a passion for breath work and for movement. So thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today.
My pleasure to be here, Alex. Thank you. Yeah.
Why don't you start by just telling us a little bit about, who you are, what you do?
Yeah, great. Well, my name is Damien Kai Norman. People also call me Day, so that's a nickname you can use if you like. I feel like redefining my purpose, my vision for a while now, and trying to come into more clarity with what exactly I am offering. And for me, the vision that I have is to create a therapeutic container from which then to offer modalities such as breath work, fascial stretch therapy, a type of body work, movement and dance, like movement coaching, this kind of thing. And then, to offer that through the container of professional counseling and therapy and somatic-based therapy. So looking to, find that harmony between mind, body, spirit, and our emotional body. And that's kind of the vision that I have for myself and for the world. Yeah.
It's pretty, I wouldn't say rare. Yeah, it is rare to find someone who's really incorporating movement and dance with the somatic aspect. So can you tell us a little about why and how you see all these interconnecting with each other?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I come from a professional dance background, so I should start there. I had a career in dance for many years and still perform, still teach here and there. It's a little bit less in my focus these days, but definitely still an integral part of who I am and how I operate.
Where were you dancing professionally?
Yeah, so my career mostly was in Toronto, in Canada. And then I was also in Germany for a few years dancing there with a few companies as well. So that was mostly where my career.
What kind of dance?
So I was trained in contemporary, ballet, and modern dance. Yeah.
Can we, if we look online, can we see you among,
there's a few videos you can find. Yeah.
Okay, and anything, I don't know shit about dance, but anything famous, any performance that we might have heard of?
No, nothing famous, unfortunately. I'm not that well known, but had a good career and had definitely lots of cool videos. If you want to check it out, I have a YouTube page you can go and look at. It's Movement Manifest on YouTube.
I'll put the links in the notes. You'll send me all that, so you guys can
beautiful.
All this.
But for me, if I think about my colleagues and dancers on a whole, there is very much an understanding, a connection to the emotional body, and art itself, of course, is highly based in our intuition, in our emotions, in that energetic body, right? And so I think for me, dance is actually a beautiful example of how physicality, like raw, expressive physicality, actually beautifully merges with this emotional component, this sense of like a higher self, right? And so I think that's actually very much where this vision started, is just recognizing that in dance and seeing how movement is inherently tied to how we express ourselves emotionally. Right? Sometimes emotions can't be really expressed as articulately through words. And really what we need to do is tune into a felt charge, a felt sensation in the body, right? And that is actually the foundation for really transforming the way that we experience trauma and experience difficult emotions, is to actually have a deep connection to our physical body and our ability to feel comfortable and safe and open in our bodies, which of course then ties back into having a physical practice, right? So that's kind of, I think, the foundation of where that started.
And did you come to, I fully agree, did you come to that from a personal experience? Was that your way of expressing traumas or, childhood issues? Is that how you came to that?
Yeah, absolutely. I have my own, certainly my own trauma. Come from a complicated childhood, some physical abuse on my dad's side. He dealt with, still deals with substance use issues, anger management issues. So for sure, there was a lot of trauma that I worked through my dance career, and still to this day, going through therapy and doing breath work. Breath work has been phenomenally transformative for integrating these personal triggers and traumas for myself and for many other people as well.
Do you feel
Yeah.
they are those traumas that you just mentioned? Are they the source of why you are doing what you're doing in terms of why you went to dance? Is that what, maybe that was not maybe the initial reason you went for it, but now that you reflect back on your career, do you think that was the initial impulse?
I think it was a huge component to it, absolutely. And interestingly enough, my dad himself, he is a martial artist or was, and so there was this. I was brought up in a more with seeing this, how beautifully the body can move and express itself. And so I think there was also that tying in there a little bit, like some layers of my personal upbringing, and then for sure, this sense of needing to express myself, but that at the time, and needing to work through, I think also for me, and maybe for a lot of people, my personal trauma has shown up very consistently as pain, as physical discomfort of actually a great deal of tension and just chronic pain to a certain degree. And I think that dance and movement, movement being medicine in many ways, has allowed me to not only release some of that chronic pain, but also to build a relationship with it. So I say for sure that dance has been instrumental in that, and definitely unconsciously, I probably was drawn to that for sure. Yeah.
You know what? I do, if you look at animals, let's say two birds that are fighting over a river, when they move away from each other, they start shaking their wings.
Totally. Yeah.
And it feels like in our culture that's not okay. I cannot just start shaking. So I'm going to get drunk on Saturday night, go to a club, and that's a container that is socially acceptable for me to release. And then people would say, oh my God, if I don't go to Zumba every Thursday, I'm not functioning. If I don't have my Saturday night escape, then I'm not functioning. So we have created those socially acceptable ways for us to express to our bodies, think that, intuitively we want to do, but, you can't just, well, you can, but it's just not acceptable to just move like an animal and shake like an animal in society. So would you relate to that? Yeah, I can see yes.
Absolutely, like so completely on point. I couldn't agree more. I think you said it exactly so. Like, even the idea of just shaking, right? Like that's a practice that we do in Qi Gong, for example, and dance, and I'm sure many other physical practices. And it is from my understanding, it is the sense of fight or flight, right? When an animal is in a more combative or sympathetic state, right, where it's needing to either show up and actually engage physically or get the heck out and run away. It is after those moments that they'll stop and shake and release that pent up energy, right? And we don't do that at all. And that's like just to think about the amount of stress that we experience on a day-to-day basis. Maybe it's not inherently so obvious, like we're not getting into fights every day, but we are taking on tremendous stress through so many means, through our emotional interactions, through our own mental pressure that we put on ourselves for achieving some sort of success, from our jobs, from just the busyness of our lives. And yet so little of the time do we take conscious time daily to then release that stress through something like shaking, which animals will do many times during the day. So yeah, I totally agree.
So now let's take an example in Damien's life. If you can remember the last very stressful situation you experienced, whether it was a conflict with someone close to you, or professional or financial, can you remember of the last time you were in really stress, which is not something you control? It's you're experiencing something, and then all of a sudden it's beyond your control. You get triggered because you know, your dad abused you and it's reminding you of that situation, or relation with your mom. It's always mom and dad's shit, you know, often. And can you put yourself back into that moment and tell us what happened and how, if you manage to deal with it in a conscious way, can you walk us through how you do it? How do you deal with stress?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm still learning, I think, is a really important thing to state, right? It's never a perfect process. And I actually so I'm doing something called the presence process right now, which is doing a breathwork practice 2 times a day, while in combination with a really beautiful book that you read through and has prompts and kind of guides you through this therapeutic self-integration practice, right? And often what will happen with these sort of, say again?
What is the book?
It's called The Presence Process. It's by Michael Brown, I want to say. Yeah. Incredible book. I would highly recommend it. Really, really beautiful stuff.
And what kind of breathing? What kind of breath work do you do?
Yeah, so he actually has a particular breath practice that I believe he recommends doing 15 minutes seated and actually through the nose, whereas I have taken it. Yeah, exactly. So a linked breath cycle, in and out. He recommends that the inhale and the exhale are quite similar in duration and like intensity and length, but it's a very calming, meditative, very soft nose breath practice. Which I also would recommend, and I think it's a beautiful way to breathe. For me personally, I do a breath wave style practice where I'm breathing on my back for 20 minutes and using a very soft mouth breathing practice.
Are you set on let's say 5 breaths per minute or 6 breaths per minute? Is it kind of timed or not, or it's just normal relaxed breath?
That's a great question. I actually have never timed it, so I don't time it, but I'd be curious to see what that is. Actually, I'm not sure. Yeah.
Cool. Please continue.
Yeah. So, anyways, often with these processes, for example, what the presence process would talk about is the idea of presence, or you might say like a higher power, or something beyond yourself, some sort of maybe I don't know, like, yeah, let's just say higher power for now. I feel like that's a good word, but basically that you will encounter situations in your life that actually are there for you to learn something, right? And so this flip of perception that anything that you come in contact with in your life that is challenging or triggering is actually, an opportunity, very, very kind of Buddhist in this way, an opportunity to learn and grow, right? And often these things will happen more and more intensely when you are consciously engaging in these practices, right? So anyways, I actually had one of those myself recently where I came into contact with someone who triggered me quite strongly, and I haven't been triggered like that in a long time. It's been quite some time since I felt so reactive.
You want to share you want to share so we understand what it was about?
Yes, absolutely. So basically I got into I won't go too much into story, but basically I was triggered in sense of feeling very manipulated, feeling very controlled, and somehow I projected onto this person this feeling of that he was out to get me, that he was trying to control me, trying to somehow undercut me in some way, right? And that relates back to another childhood experience that I had, and that I've actually worked with a lot through therapy myself and through breath work and these kind of practices. I think it was the first time in a while where, again, there's that difference between reacting and responding, right? So I noticed actually quite early that there was tension in my body, and normally I would be more attuned to that. However, I didn't really recognize what was going on, and so this tension in my body quickly turned to like an emotional charge, right? So this feeling of, it's no longer just becoming a physical sensation, it's now evolving into the emotional body. And there is, in my case, there was a need to defend, a need to protect myself by becoming more intense with my presence, with my voice, right? Something like this would be the kind of the moving into that emotional charge and then expressing the emotional charge, right? And so I caught myself at that point in time when I was already quite heated and like, whoa, like what is going on? I have not been here in a while. This is, you know, I need to check myself a bit and be like, okay. And it's not that that's wrong to, for example, get intense or get angry. I think it's actually really important to note that, you know, when we're in these places, it's not about shame or guilt or blame, but about recognizing and knowing that, okay, that in some way needed to be expressed, but to recognize the charge before it becomes necessarily expressed, right? And then to know how to then release that charge, which might be through shaking or going and taking some time to breathe, or maybe doing it yourself, like going and finding a pillow and screaming to that pillow, but doing it for yourself versus like putting it on someone else, right? Yeah, and then that being that, so that was my process, was like catching myself in this more intense place, and then having to backtrack a little bit and be like, okay, like this is clearly I'm feeling triggered here, and I need to shift how I am relating to the situation. Yeah.
And okay, so you caught yourself, you became aware of it, and you didn't look, and did you do anything after that to release it?
Yeah, definitely. Breath work. Breath work is my go-to, 100%. I find that breath work is phenomenal for
So no
breath
movement,
work, and
no
also,
dance, no movement, no
say again?
dance, no movement, no dance, no hitting the pillow or martial art. Breath work. You went for breath work.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I want to think about exactly what happened afterwards. Yeah, no, I feel like in that moment, let me think about this for a moment. Really come back to that exact moment. I think for me, I was quite, yeah, like shaken, and yeah, I had felt my experience was feeling quite attacked, and vulnerable, and hence this need to protect and to, you know, yeah, become more intense for fear of being attacked. And so for me, I was quite like shooken up and quite kind of yeah, like in kind of almost a freeze afterwards, where I wasn't quite sure what to do. And so for me, yeah, my instinct was to come into something that really was centering and grounding and tuning back into feeling my body, as opposed to kind of being in this frozen state. So yeah, breath work was my go-to.
What kind of
Yeah,
breath work?
breath wave. So yeah, it's the one I'm trained in. So it's laying on your back, breathing through a relaxed breath, but a full body breath. So kind of that balance point between creating an expansive inhale through the diaphragm, through the pelvic floor, through the chest, solar plexus, rib cage, but then relaxing completely on the exhale and doing that entirely through the mouth, and connecting, of course, the breath on both sides of the cycle.
And
Yeah.
what happened? Did you release anything? What happened there?
Yeah, I had a good cry. That was one thing. I had a very, very good cry, and that was, of course, very helpful. And I
What was the
also, in
cry
my breath
about?
practice,
Was it related to the event? Was it what did you remember or relieve at that moment?
yeah, it is related to a bit more of a story of when I was quite heavily manipulated for a long time. There was a relationship I had in my past where that happened, where there was a very real experience of being gaslighted and lied to for a long period of time. And so I think there was just this realization in my body that even though I had done work through therapy in that way, there was still part of myself that clearly what needed to protect itself and was still being triggered in that moment. And so coming back to that part of myself that hadn't quite been touched yet, that hadn't quite been seen or felt yet, and allowed to be, yeah, felt and experienced. And so I think that was the release for sure. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
See, that's a fantastic example. Damien, this is fantastic. So it's for everyone to really understand what happened there, because you experienced the situation, you got triggered,
Yeah.
and then the importance of that moment is really crucial for everyone to realize. This is a growth opportunity. This is a moment where
Yeah.
you realize, instead of going into, okay, I'm blocking that, I don't want to experience that, I'm going to run away, I'm going to protect myself, whether you're going to be defensive or escaping, it's the same. It's just a defense mechanism, and it's your way of defending yourself, whether it's by reacting in a passive way or in an aggressive way. It's still the same. It's still a reaction. You witness, oh my God, something's powerful is going on, which is not to the level of what is really happening in the room. There is something underneath that that is worth exploring. And then you went into the breath, and the breath got you the answer. The breath got you to really, so it's not something that we can necessarily consciously identify when you think about it. That's the limit of verbal therapy. And you said you went through therapy. It has its own limitation because you need to understand, but the body has the memory. So if you got the trigger and you right away or soon after, it's still in that state, able to go to the breath with this beautiful connected breath, then all of a sudden you access another state of consciousness that gets you the answer to the question that you were asking your body. It says, what the hell is going on?
Totally.
And that's the power of the breath. That's the power of all of a sudden giving you the answers you need to whatever question you're asking yourself. And that's a wonderful experience and wonderful for you to describe. So thank you so much for that. But it's really that idea, guys, that triggers are great. Now, when you are into that mindset and you've got tools like movement and breath, and I also use the eyes, then now all of a sudden you don't waste a good trigger. You don't waste a good crisis. You know, it is, yay. So you're just already just having that changes your relation to the incident. So instead of being into, oh, my ego is being affected, I am who someone else is just, and all of a sudden you're able to receive with compassion and actually with excitement and love. Say, oh yeah, cool. Because this is how you grow. This is by going to your edges, you know, and this is really embracing discomfort. This is much more powerful than any ice bath or stunt that you see on TV. Yeah, this is real shit. It is personal. This is your own stuff. And I really loved how you described it, because that was a real. And for me, what's interesting is I expected that you would describe some kind of shaking, you know, some kind of, all right, I'm going to go into one of my movements. So I do the same. So I'm interested. What I do also, just for the audience, I like to journal. So maybe I won't go into, so you said grounding, the keys to ground. So just for me too, it's the idea is to getting it out. You get it out of you. So having a way to get it out of you, and sometimes it's just a piece of paper and a pen, but it is there. So you are able to say all these things that you maybe repress, maybe don't dare to say, because you're going to be pretty rude, you're going to be pretty aggressive, you're going to say things that if you were verbalizing that you would regret, but it's you on your piece of paper. It's you, and it's like screaming in the wind, you know, you let it out. So having a way to let it out of the body is a guarantee that it doesn't stay in the body. And that's the key, because if it stays in the body, trust me, you're going to pay. The body is going to make you pay for it. We store issues in our tissues. Yeah, totally. So it's coming out in forms of cancer, of autoimmune disease, and all those kinds of imbalances. So let's go back to the movement.
Yeah.
You didn't use movement in that moment. You went for the breath. I don't dance, so for me, I do it a little bit, and I'm happy to talk about it because I use it in the eyes these days. But I'm interested in, you're a professional. I'm interested in, okay, insert the movement and the dance in this conversation. How would you do that?
Totally. Well, yeah. So for example, actually, I had a really beautiful experience of dance later on afterwards where, so for me, the breath is very much a integration tool. So a sense of coming back into self and allowing myself to feel what needs to be felt. And then afterwards, once I felt like that had taken place and I felt a bit of a release, in this case through crying, I also did some shaking actually during my breath as well. It should be talked about. I use toning and shaking during my breath practice. Not a lot of it, but it's sprinkled in there. But after that that experience was allowed to be released and felt and experienced, integrated, there was later in the evening, I actually had a really beautiful session of dancing, and it was much more of this joyful expression of my body. And I think that's actually something that I've been playing with quite a bit lately. As a professional dancer, and also just as myself, and I'm sure many of us can relate, I have a tendency to compare myself to other people when I'm moving or when I am, creating movement in some way. And often the purpose of the movement can be for me more technical in nature. So, how can I refine this movement to be more fluid and skillful and graceful and whatever, right? As opposed to that night afterwards, I really tune into a sense of more ecstatic dance, of just allowing my body to feel pleasure, to feel like it didn't need to prove anything, didn't need to do anything, just needed to, again, express itself through movement, which is the language of the body. And so I think like in that situation, there was a sense of coming back to myself and giving myself pleasure and love and communicating with my body through the medium of movement, which was, really, really quite a beautiful experience for me. So, yeah.
Yeah, and what I hear you say is that you got to that state because of the release that you had through the breath, and the breath
Totally.
allowed you to go to a little bit closer to who you are and figuring that out a little bit more, because you had that aha moment through the breath. I say, okay, that's still there, that's not cleared yet. Okay, let's be aware of it. And then after that, you've got that deeper connection to self that in your world is expressed through movement and dance.
Totally. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I want to dance more. Yeah, that's good, man. That's
good. Yeah.
Good stuff. So tell us about how you work with people. How does that work?
Yeah. Well, right now I offer one-on-one facilitation through breathwork. And I do incorporate a little bit of body work into my breathwork facilitation, as well as, encouraging toning, encouraging, oming, and allowing the voice to be expressed in that way. Shaking for sure. And just tuning into how I can help, guide and allow the breath cycle, the breath practice to be more full in the body, more expressed, more relaxed, more felt by the breather. So that's the breath work. And then I offer fascial stretch therapy, which again is a form of body work. It's a beautiful form where basically you're taking the fascial lines in the body through manipulating, it might be the legs, the back, the arms, the shoulders, the neck, and taking them through lines of motion that open up the fascial lines in the body. And we can use some
you're
active...
touching people there. This is touching
totally
people. So this is not something you do online. Everything you do is offline?
Yeah. Well, breathwork can be online. I offer things online through breathwork for sure. The FSC, unfortunately, there'd be no way to do that online. It's all very much like actually physically lifting up a leg, for example, and taking it through space. So really quite manipulating the body. So there'd be no way of doing that online, unfortunately. There are some maybe similar techniques you can do using TheraBands, using straps for yourself, but it's not quite the same. And then I also do movement coaching as well, using dance and movement flow. And then also the newest addition to that is that I'm going to school for a 2-year professional counseling program in January. So that's all set up to, again, include that therapeutic container to then work from as well. Yeah.
Tell us about the shaking. And you said for sure shaking. So it looks like it's a must. It's a must do. That's how I received it. So what does shaking look like? Am I laying down and as I'm breathing, I'm shaking on the ground? Am I doing that before I go into the breath? Tell us.
All of the above, really. So the first place that I feel like I learned shaking was through dance and through floor work. And so just the idea of you can take your palms together. It'd be a little hard to see just on this screen, but you can take your palms together while you're laying down on the floor, and then shake your palms back and forth, and then move that down towards your pelvis, all the way back up to your head, and use this pressure between the palms to move the body on the floor. It'd be a really lovely way of shaking. And that tool in dance was to allow yourself to connect more to the floor and to really release and feel the floor underneath you. But it can be a great way to just move the body and open up the lines of the body. And of course, just actual shaking and moving through the floor while you're breathing is also beautiful. And it's just, it's a way of allowing energy to move freely through the body, right? And then of course, the other place that I utilize that is Qi Gong, and Qi Gong utilizes shaking beautifully. So you can stand, do the same thing, and there's various ways of doing it. But basically, the way I would like to teach it is just having really soft, open feet soft bent knees, so the joints are quite open and ready to receive, a shake. And then starting with the pelvis being the focus point of the shake, it's really allowing the weight of the pelvis to drop down through the knees, down to the feet, and then allowing that reverberation to happen through the torso, through the head, through the neck, including the arms. And then, yeah, again, once that is established, that shake is established, then allowing the voice to be heard too, like allowing some grunts, some sounds, some sighs, some toning, and just again, that feeling of releasing energy, releasing tension that's no longer serving. And so, yeah, a beautiful practice you can do before your breath work. You can just do during the day, if you're feeling stressed or overwhelmed or a bit more heightened in yourself, maybe even just feeling tension, physical tension in the body. Yeah, lots of reasons to shake. Yeah.
And do you have videos of all that? Of you guiding it? Is it?
I have some Qi Gong videos. Yep. I don't have a video particularly on shaking, but I've used shaking in some of the body breath classes that I have, and I utilize it in my movement coaching as well. So yeah.
Let's put that all in the notes, so guys, you can actually watch all that. That's good, super useful. So you said something that I want to explore a bit more. You said the purpose of the shaking would be to release energy.
Yeah.
Can you talk to that a bit?
Yeah. I think again, like for me, so if I'm thinking about energy as a felt sensation in the body. So let's say that there is an anxiousness is a great one. We feel anxiety quite a bit in our day, I feel. I'm certainly attuned to that myself more often these days, especially with the social climate that we're in. So if you are feeling rushed, overwhelmed, if you're feeling like a bit quick in how you're speaking and how you're relating, if you're not feeling centered and calm at home in your body, somehow just, open and receptive, right? This shaking can bring you back into that place of centeredness. So so the tension, the energy I'm speaking of is this heightened vibration in the body, right? And again, that feeling of anxiousness is a really easy one to connect to. And so by shaking, we're actually physically releasing, emotionally releasing that anxiety, that tension that we experience in the body. And I can't really speak necessarily to the physiological mechanisms there, but experientially it works beautifully. Yeah.
I'll give it a try, and you fill the gaps. From my understanding, we are storing negative emotions in lower part of the body, in the belly and in our sex. So this is where resentment, anger, frustration, sadness, all these, that's where it says, oh, I feel angry. Where does it feel, And you can really feel it. It says, oh, it's in there, it's in your guts. And we say it, I feel it in my guts. Okay? Yeah. And for me, the idea, when you shake, when you move, you kind of you allow that tension to just be more, have the space to literally move. And the breath can then operate and then move this energy up. And then when you said, you practice Qi Gong or even dance, all this idea of having music that will increase the vibration and elevate your frequency and your vibration in the body, all that idea is that we need to somehow move it up. Yeah. And the shaking is kind of a prep work in order to do that, because if you can do all the breath work you want, all the movement you want, if you haven't kind of let go of, release of that, if it's still there, nothing's going to happen. It's going to be pretty dry, and you can feel the people that breathe without having done that work, that not much is moving. The body is holding on to that, because you have to be mindful that if you are holding on for a long time to these emotions, the body doesn't want to let them go. They define who you are. Your personality has now been impacted by these years of suppression of emotion that are just being piling up, and that's me. This is who I am. And now all of a sudden, if anything you're going to do to change that, it's going to be blocked by the body, because the body doesn't know what's the alternative. Who else? This is, if not that, what else? So this shaking is almost a way to bypass the mind, to says, all right, I don't care about what you think. Let's go through the body. Let's do these massages and shaking, and let's go for the pain. I love the pain. I love pain as a signal, meeting the pain and going for the pain. I lay on nails and I go through massages where I scream. And whenever I feel the pain, instead of moving away from the pain, I go towards it. I say, yeah, go for it. Give it to me. Because pain is not something that we want to experience. Pain is a signal sent to the body to this, I'm going to die. But when you consciously know that I'm not going to die, you can go towards the pain. It says, okay, bring on the pain. Let's see what's on the other side. Because usually it's the ego that is getting attached and it's a way for the body to protect itself. And then the breath can do its magic. But I love that, you know, when you expressed it, you kind of said, I always do the shaking. I think in a way is, you know, what's the point of a good breath if you haven't done that first? So these movements that you described and the shaking and the release of the hips are a way to enter the breath with the right intention. It doesn't have to come from the mind, but it's just say, all right, let's see what's there. How do you react to that? What do you think?
Yeah, well, what's actually coming to mind, it's a little bit of a tangent, but I think it relates beautifully, is yoga, right? So if you think about the actual asana of yoga and the purpose of asana is, you know, it's been kind of diluted a little bit in the West, right? Where now asana is often just a means in its own to come to a place of physical prowess, right? Which is of course amazing and beautiful. But originally asana was a practice to come into meditation. Right, the idea of asana is there to open the body lines, open and create a felt experience in the body of openness, of receptivity, of allowing things to be channeled and processed effortlessly because there is no stagnation, there's no tension in the body. When there's no tension, things can flow quite freely. So exactly like Alex is saying, shaking is a similar tool in that way. Movement of any kind is a tool in that way. It actually reminds me also of a physiotherapist that I'm not working with, but I'm in the same company as him. And he, again, also talks about very clearly that movement is medicine. So for the idea of even if you're sitting for long periods of time, simply by changing your posture in a more frequent way, let's say every 10, 15 minutes, just change the way you're seating. If you're standing, if you're maybe kneeling, if you have one leg over the top of the other, if maybe there's a twist, like just adding different forms of being seated. And that movement, again, is helping to release stagnation from the body. So all of these things come back to the idea that, yeah, we need to set ourselves up by doing a physical practice that allows the body to remain open. And again, it comes back even to animals, right? If you look at a cat or a dog, they're constantly doing mini stretching sessions throughout the day. Right? That's not just because they want to be limber and capable. It's actually because it allows the body, again, to come back into a felt safe place of openness and receptivity. So it's all connected in that way. Yeah.
Oh man, yeah, I think we did that right now.
Totally. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Everyone watching, just take a few seconds to just get into the body.
Idea, actually.
You know,
yeah.
Do some movements. You know, and come back. Yeah, look at that.
Yeah, like a great one, even yeah, just a one you can do very easily is some Qigong. You can do that like opening through the chest, expanding up and out through the spine, and then just collapsing down, curving the spine, going back and forth between these motions. Right? It's a beautiful way to do something very simple and seated. And go to the side, open through the side body a little bit, come back. Right, this kind of thing is beautiful. Working through the chest, the shoulders, the rib cage, the spine. And then just coming back and yeah, just a little shake, and that's all you really need, really, right? If you did like those every 15 minutes, you'd be doing great, right?
Yeah, man. Love it. Love it. One thing what came to me recently, that idea of also taking time to witness myself, because
Yeah.
instead of directing the body to just pause and just witness, what am I doing? Because usually the body is taking care of itself. So maybe if you're doing certain things, it's interesting to question, why am I doing something? And that can be, now I'm going to eat some sugar. Why am I attracted, and why do I want to eat some sugar right now? What it is that what's underneath that? Or things that are come not because you decided and you've got your routine and you're controlling the body and you're control. Okay, that's often how men we operate. Says, okay, I'm in control, I'm on top of it, da 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 da.
Yeah.
But when you're not that, when you're just witnessing, where is my energy, and then all of a sudden questioning, why am I doing this? Why did I do that? Why did I behave in this particular manner with this person? Or and just checking in, am I honoring myself? Am I in integrity with myself? Or am I compromising myself? Or am I doing it because I actually have an intention that is not completely in integrity? So just having these moments of pause, and again using the breath to just okay, now let's get the bullshit. What's going on here? What's going on? All right, let's have a and I love that practice. I saw that recently also, is just look at yourself in the mirror. Michael Jackson,
Totally.
just look at yourself, and just spend a bit of time eye gazing with yourself, which is very hard to do. When are you really eye gazing? When you look at yourself in the mirror, you're checking your hair. I mean, you do, I don't, but you're checking if something physical going on in your body and whether you like it or not. But when do you look at yourself beyond that? Just spending time checking in with your soul, with, okay, how are we doing? What's going on? And do you do that?
Absolutely. It actually reminds me of an incredible book. You can heal your life. You can heal yourself. I believe it's Louise Hay or Deborah Hay. I always forget which one it is. I'm gonna look it up right now. Let me see here. You can heal your life. Yeah, there it is. Yes, Louise Hay. Incredible book that I went through years ago now, and still utilize those tools. And one of them is, going into the mirror and speaking affirmations, or simply just talking to yourself, right? Or acknowledging and giving yourself self-love, right? And that's huge. And I think that's something I take away from that practice in particular, is recognizing how we relate to ourselves, recognizing how we acknowledge our own experiences, whether those are pleasurable or difficult. What is our relationship with ourself, particularly when things get challenging, right? And you can really see that very clearly when you're doing eye gazing in the mirror, right? You can see very clearly whether there's a sense of comfort, of love, of acceptance, or if there is refusal to even do so. If there's resistance, if there's negativity, if you see yourself and there's immediately judgment, right? And not that that's wrong, but just a good tool to see where you're at, right?
Yeah, 100% support that. And for me, it came down to having an understanding of why I was doing, what am I doing, what I'm doing. And it's easy because it's easy, but it's not simple. It's easy because it's always something that is related to your childhood. It's everything is done before 7 and most likely between 0 and 3. So the more you will have an idea, I'm behaving, let's say, I'm an asshole with women. And you can blame yourself for being an asshole with women, or you can witness that, hey, this is the model I had as a kid, or this is how I saw my dad behave with my mother. So now all of a sudden you can just witness and understand, okay, this is how I behave. Now I make a mental note that it's not okay and I need to change that. But I can also understand the wounded child that got to experience that and have compassion for myself, because I'm doing this, but I of course, who wouldn't? And now all of a sudden you can move on. and you're able to move to the next level of yourself. But it's very important to remain kind with yourself, and then having this, because it's easy to just go into blame or victim, and
Totally.
one or the other, and staying stuck there.
Yeah, I love to speak that a little bit. I'm learning a little bit more about these things, and I feel one thing that is important to recognize is often, particularly when you're doing inner child work, there is often a need that wasn't met at some level when you were a child, right? And so if you can come to a place of recognizing, maybe if we're using having unhealthy relationships with women, if that's your experience, perhaps there is a mother wound there where maybe you didn't receive the attention that you needed, and maybe your mom was very busy and working her butt off to provide for you, or I'm not sure, maybe she was dealing with her own trauma in some way, but basically you were perceived this experience, you had this very valid experience of not receiving love and the way you needed, of being ignored, of being abandoned, of somehow not being recognized for your qualities, your strengths, whatever it is, right? But coming back to that moment of recognizing a need there, and how that need now then corresponds to how you react and treat women in this example, right? Or yourself, or whatever it is. But coming back to that moment of what need was not met, right?
Yeah.
It can be very helpful and very powerful.
And what you said is very important, because often people associate trauma with something terrible. And
right.
it's something, and we don't feel entitled to feel and name things that happened to us as traumas, because it was not I didn't get beaten, I didn't get raped. So
right.
who am I
right.
who am I to feel sorry for myself? And and we don't allow ourselves to be sorry for ourselves for because mommy was working, and that's not cool. But of course she had to work, so we almost don't allow ourselves to feel that. So it's really to acknowledge that we all have traumas, and it's all related to we go through childhood, and I love the work of 𝒂💏💊💏 there. Says
yes.
we all share the same trauma, basically, that as a child you had to please mommy and daddy to stay alive. So you had to, if I am going to be myself and I speak my truth, maybe they're going to reject me because I disagree with them. I think what they do is stupid. But if I say that, they're not going to feed me. So I can't say that. So very early on, we learn to just compromise our identity and our strong belief in order to be accepted. And we just carry that on in our relationship, in our groups, in our society, because we just try to fit in. We want to be accepted. And that's a shared trauma. Now, Damien, I'm conscious of the time. One question is about one last question, which is,
please.
What do you do? What is your daily routine?
Yeah.
What is Damien's daily routine? And after that, I'll give you some time to share whatever you felt you wanted to share and didn't have time for.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Alex. Yeah. My daily routine, I've been playing with it, so it's definitely still something I am evolving with, and I think there needs to be a certain amount of flexibility. So I want to speak just briefly to the idea that I think it's more important to show up with as much consistency as possible, as opposed to having to have a very set, like it has to be this way or no way, right? I think we often get this mindset, if it's not done the right way, I shouldn't do it at all, and I'm just going to throw it all out the window, right? And so simply the idea of showing up as consistent as you can, as much as you're able to, and that is key, right? And that might not be perfect either, right? But the sense that at some level that is the intention behind a practice, right? Is to show up as much as you're able to, for as long as you're able to. So I want to speak to that a little bit, but yeah, for me personally, breath work is key. So I usually start with a breath work practice. I used to do more Wim Hof, back in the day. Now more it's breath wave. And so, but any breathwork practice I find to be a beautiful way of, again, coming back into the body, of coming back into a felt sense of where you're at today. I find that it allows, it allows a lot of processing, a lot of like coming into clarity with where I am right now, how I want to move forward, what is really important to me, what is my purpose for today, in some way. Lately, I've been following a breathwork practice up with a meditation practice, which I find to be beautifully complementary. And then, yeah, often during the day, I'll include a movement practice for sure. And that's also very, very important to me personally.
How do you meditate? By yourself? Do you listen to an audio, or what?
Yeah, a variations on things. So I've had a few beautiful teachers that I really resonate with. 𝒂💏 𝒂💏 comes to mind as an incredible, facilitator. She's a Tibetan Buddhist nun, incredible teacher. So I used to listen to her nonstop for a long time. She's phenomenal. Lately, I've been listening to a man named 𝒂💏 beautiful practitioner, beautiful teacher and guide.
Cool.
And
Tell
then,
me
of
all
course,
that, guys. I'll put it in the notes. Let's
yeah,
get some good stuff.
yeah.
Cool. Thank you.
And then Insight Timer is a beautiful app. It's free, but you also can pay for it. And yeah, it's a wonderful app that has so many options, so many guided facilitations, and of course, just a regular timer as well, where you can have like simple background music or no background music, your choice entirely. And I find that to be very helpful as well. So, yeah.
Anything you
Yeah.
wish you had shared that you didn't have time for?
Yeah, I think the one last thing that I would love to speak to that I'm playing with and trying to be more consistent with myself is that sense of gratitude of really taking time to notice what I'm grateful for in my life, but also in a similar fashion, if I have taken time to really speak to myself, to acknowledge how the language I use throughout the day, how I have been speaking to myself internally or externally. I do talk to myself, but actually, and yeah, just taking a moment to reflect and bring gratitude to yourself, to the people in your life, to just having this life in general. There's so many things to be grateful for, and I think it's really easy for most of us to get caught up in what's not working, in the things that are negative, negative. And as opposed to really bringing your awareness into this, it's actually in breath work, we call it miracle consciousness, right? And so this idea of tuning into the qualities that you want to embody in your life. And I feel like gratitude brings you beautifully into that space of how do I want to show up, as opposed to focusing on what's not working. So yeah, I'll speak to that quickly. And yeah, just also thank you very much, Alex. It's a pleasure being here. I really appreciate this time. And yeah, thank you.
No, that was really, really awesome. I'm very honored. I really enjoyed it. Oh, I love this conversation. So I'm really, really grateful. And we have the next training in January. So I look forward also to have you come as one of the coaches, share some amazing movements and get us
awesome.
into it all. So have a wonderful day, Damien. It's evening for us in Paris and daytime in the US. So enjoy a beautiful day. And everyone, tell us what you do. What do you do in the morning? Tell us what you do about these movements. Ask questions. Engage below and tell us what you think of these videos. All right. Thank you, Damien. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.